Okay, so directly going off of the last video, we have this accumulation, manipulation, distribution, all these session rules. Now we can start to factor in like session highs, session lows, and how it reacts. So from this manipulation, we'll switch this to the exact times of the sessions. So this is still a New York session. This is like New York slowdown. Then we get to here, which is Asia session, going into London session. So this would be, for Asia session, we would go from 20 to, let's get a horizontal line. Okay, so seeing that this is Asia session, it would make sense to say that this is Asia low, and then this is, up here would be Asia high, because so New York session is from, how do I want to put this? New York session is from about like 7, like technically the banks don't get out until 9:30, but 7:30ish I use New York session to about, like technically it does go until like 5, but starts to slow down around noon, typically. Obviously that's prone to change depending on the day, but no. And then London session is from like 2 to 2 to like 5 is peak volatility, and then you get into like New York overlap and all that. We'll show right here actually. So you can see Sydney don't fucking base a trade off of goddamn Australia. But no, you can see Tokyo goes from 8 p.m. to like 5 a.m. Then London has overlap from 4 to 5 a.m. with Tokyo, and then they go from 5 a.m. to like 1 p.m. And then New York goes from 8 a.m. to on. And the big thing with this is peak volatility. So Tokyo Asian session has like no volatility. Most of the time that's what you're like, what's it called? Oh, definitely wrong way. But no. So most of the time, Asia is going to be your accumulation zone. They have like no volatility. And then, at least on GBP JPY, London session in New York kind of will interchange between like distribution and manipulation. That's kind of why you just have to look and see for yourself. But peak volatility, London has massive volatility. I think it moves around 120 pips from like highs and lows. And then New York, I think, is like a little less, a little more than that, depending on the day. But you ideally want to be trading from 8, at least with this strategy, you want to be trading from 8 a.m. To like, I like to trade from 8 a.m. to like 12 at the latest, because then you're catching this London New York overlap. So there's so many banks, there's so much volatility. So if you know what you're doing, this is prime hours to make the most amount of money possible. But so we'll go back to this. So now for like liquidity sweeps, stuff like that, you literally, the way I trade at least, you have Asia low there, you have Asia high here, highest point that price reached in that session. And then you could actually use this. So this is London session to New York overlap right here. What do we do? And this actually, I would trade on this, not gonna lie. I would want a little more confluence, but I would definitely trade on this. So, boom, you can see we actively seeked out Asia high, we sweeped Asia high, and then we also got this break of structure here. So that's literally why, like you see it, just run. Like there's no hesitation at all. Literally no hesitation at all here. It just runs straight back to Asia low. And that's an assumption you can make. That's why liquidity sweeps work pretty good, because you sweep the liquidity, so there's literally no other reason to go up. So then you can confirm that we're going to go down to another area of liquidity. So that's the lazy man's way to trade, to be honest. That's like 2,500 right there. So sweep out Asia session here, and then we'll throw like, and that's really, Asia range is the most predictable because it's the smallest range, so it's easiest for price to go through. Like you can see, this is a like 65 pip range here compared to other ranges, which get a lot bigger. Oh shit! Wait, no, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So we'll do like one more example, and then we'll cut it here. Okay, right here. And that's another thing. In this distribution zone, that's why we just trade the manipulation, because distribution can literally just continue it completely. Which it didn't in this case, but it can. So right here, honestly, we could go even to here. All the way from here to here. Accumulation zone. I will write it just in case. So accumulation right here. What do? We break out. This is about Asia session. So we break out, and then we have a but no. So then we have that accumulation zone there, and then right here, manipulation. And once again, this is what we'd want to trade on, because what can you trade off of this? This break of structure right here. We break session high, session low. So you could read this as you could view this as a sweep of the low, because you see this shit right here, and then we get an order block retrace, and then we get the break of structure here. So this is high confluence. We had a liquidity sweep followed by the break of structure, and the liquidity sweep was on a session low. So then, boom, long position, break of structure, which candle would be right here. At the last low, you throw your stop loss, and then since we through here, you can trade sort of. How would I want to get out of this? So I would target liquidity from this move here, and then you could start taking partials, or you could just close the whole thing out on lower low, which that's why it's important to know what you're doing and how you're trading, because still $800 trade, or $1,600 actually. So it's not a bad trade, but if that's your only trade of the day, it is. But no, then you can see we do get, like, right here. Where's my thing? Okay, here we go. So you can see we do get a during this distribution zone, like we do get a reaction down, like we do get sort of a break of structure. So you could, if you could get some sort of bias, you could get it, and then you could see this micro BOS and get out here. I'm not sure if there was liquidity there or any reason for us to reverse at that point, but you could trade off of that. But then what happens, instead of like how last example, price completely reversed, this time it just straight up continued. And that's why when we're doing this, we don't really like to trade on distribution zones. We like to trade during manipulation. So that's just like a brief overview. If you need a part 2, comment it. If it didn't sync for some reason, just comment that shit. And then homework for tonight. Literally just identify 5 sequences of accumulation, manipulation, and then distribution, and that's literally it. And then for like extra credit, I would say, and this is like really using it to the fullest capability, I would say like find 3 to 5 examples of price like reacting from one of these zones, and like just 3 to 5 trade ideas, whether that's off of a break of structure from one of these zones, or if that's like a what do I want to call it? Or if that's like a sweep followed by a break of structure, just find 3 to 5 trade ideas and have a good one.